In this video tutorial, you will learn how to make a wristband pincushion. Begin by gathering your supplies. You will need a female and male size of 1.5 inches of hook and loop tape, also known as Velcro, a square of cardboard or a business card that has been cut in half, a chunk of batting, and a piece of fabric that has been pressed and cut to 5 inches by 11 inches on grain. First, you will start by folding under each short side of the pincushion by 1/2 inch. You can do this with a measuring tool and chalk, or you can fold it over a ruler like I'm doing for a really quick and easy way to get that 1/2 inch fold. Once you have pressed that towards the wrong side of the fabric, or the technical back, you will fold the fabric in half so that the technical face, or the two right sides of the fabric, are touching each other. Next, you're going to pin either end of the fabric. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this fabric in half to find a middle point and then pin 3 inches of a span like this. So find that fold, and you can pin mark this or you can use chalk to mark it. And then 1.5 inches from that middle pin, you are going to be placing your pins there. And I like to put double pins because that helps me remember to stop. At the sewing machine, and using 1/2 inch seam allowance, begin with a back stitch and stitch from the end of the short end of the fabric to the double pins. And once you get to the double pins, go ahead and back stitch. Clip your threads and then hop right on over to the next set of pins. You'll remove those, begin with a back stitch, straight stitch, and end with a back stitch. If your opening isn't exactly 3 inches, it's really not a big deal, so just try to get as close as you can to that 3-inch mark. Once you're done, you're going to clip all of your threads so that they're nice and clean, and then we're going to be turning the wristband right side out. There are lots of different methods of doing this, so if you find a way that you'd like to try out, maybe you sew both of the ends together shut, you can try that as well. After you turn the piece of fabric right side out, you're going to flip so that the seam is facing towards you, and then we're going to try to splay the fabric so that there's 1 inch on either side of the seam. Once you've got that, you can press that in place, making sure that your seam is nice and flat, and then flip on over to the other side and make sure that the seam allowance on both sides is going the same direction, as in it's not twisting so that the seam allowance is on the right on one side and the left on the other. So in this circumstance, both of my seam allowances are on the right. And then I'm going to press that side flat. After that, you will lay out the entire band and you're going to press that seam nice and open. At the sewing machine, remove your regular 0 presser foot and insert your edge foot, or the blind hem foot. You'll move the needle position all the way over to the left, and then you are going to top stitch, and you can either just top stitch the 2 short ends, or you can top stitch around the entire edge of the wristband. Now, the benefit of just top stitching the 2 ends is that when you go to add the cardboard or your business card and the batting, the fabric will be able to move freely. And the benefit of going all the way around the outside edge is that it looks really nice, and your wristband isn't going to be flopping around if you ever have to wash it. Now you're going to grab the male side of the hook tape, so that's the side that's a little bit sharper, and you're going to lay that out on the end of your fabric. If you place a pin there, just note that it might want to move a little bit once you get to the sewing machine. And then you're going to make sure that that hook tape is on the wrong side of the fabric, so where the seam is. Keeping that edge foot on the machine, begin with a back stitch, and then you're going to go around the outside edge of the hook side, or the male side of the hook and loop tape. And you'll go around all 4 edges, beginning and ending with a back stitch. Note that the tension on the stitching might look a little wonky, and that's totally normal. It's just kind of what happens when you're stitching on Velcro, and you might be able to adjust the tension to change that. Now what we're going to do is you're going to find the middle or the center of your wristband once again, and then you're going to mark where that 1.5 inch was from one end, and then 1.5 inches or from the center, or 3 inches away from your other pin, and remove the edge foot, put on your regular presser foot, and make sure that the needle is centered. And you're going to begin and end with a back stitch. And this is going to be how we hold in the batting as well as the business card or cardboard that will prevent you from pinning through your wrist. So do the first side and then do your second side. And after you've finished, make sure that you clip all of those threads. Now you're going to insert the business card or your piece of cardstock or cardboard. The business card folded in half is going to be 2 inches by 3.25 inches, and that fits really nicely. You might have to bend it to get it in there. Just make sure that it's the size that you want and trim it down if necessary. Next, with the business card still inserted, you're going to put your batting in. I use about a handful of batting. You'll be able to tell whether you need more or less, and just feel free to pick off what you don't need or to add what you do need, just making sure that you can close that seam up. Once you've got that there, you're going to leave it without stitching it shut, and we're going to find the placement of the female side or the loop part of the tape, of the Velcro hook and loop tape. And then you can either lay out with a pin or just set that there or mark with a pencil. And then make sure that you're putting the loop tape on the correct side or the public side of the wristband. Then using the edge foot, you'll stitch around the outside edge. For this first one, this is kind of where you can figure out what size you need. And then after that, if you would like to eliminate that excess fabric, you can. I find that it's still a little bit nice to have that option. It feels really comfortable with the extra, but you can do whatever feels good. Next, using a piece of silicone or pre-waxed thread, however you finish your thread, you're going to do a double thread, put a knot at the end, and then I like to always hide my knots inside of the garment. So I'm going to hide my knot, and then I'm going to use what's called a slip stitch to close this shut. So I had really great imagery that was given to me when I learned how to do this slip stitch by my costume shop manager, and she said, imagine that the needle is a bunny, and the bunny is grabbing a carrot, and so there I'm grabbing the carrot, and then you're going to go up through the tunnel and hide the carrot in the tunnel. So you take a little bit of a bite out of the lower portion that is not folded in half, it's just laying in there flat, and then you'll go through the tunnel of that seam allowance that was turned under, and then you just keep going up until you get to the top. Now this pin cushion is really versatile. You can decide to do all sorts of different things with it. You can make round shapes instead of a square shape with your oak tag or your business card. You can use different colors of fabric. You can piece them together. Whatever you'd like, get creative. Once you get to the end, you're going to go ahead and tie a knot, and my favorite way to end any sort of hand stitching is by taking a bite of the fabric without pulling the needle all the way through. Then I wrap the thread around 2 or 3 times, and then I pull that, and it's going to create a knot exactly where I started. After that, I also really like to hide the tail of my thread, and so I'm just going to put that through under about 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch and clip the thread. After that, make sure that you've clipped all loose threads off of the hook and loop tape, anything from the top stitching, and feel free to give sections of the wristband a press if you need. Now you can try your wristband on, and it's a little bit tricky to get on the first time, but it becomes a lot easier. And if you have now completed your wristband pincushion, enjoy!